Jena, it is so good to be with you again.
Oh, it's just lovely to see you too, Cheri.
It seems like kind of a lifetime ago, doesn't it? I mean, anything that's pre-pandemic just seems like another life.
It does. It does, but it actually doesn't. I think because we're kind of in touch a little bit, that it doesn't feel that long to me.
Yeah. Right. It's just like coming home.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, if you could, I never can explain it right, but you are on the other part of the world from me, and you're enjoying spring going into summer, and I'm having in 2 days, we're going into winter here. And just if you could tell our listeners where you are at.
I live in a small village outside Melbourne, Australia. So in the southern hemisphere. and we're going from spring into summer. And we've had a very long wet spring, and we're all hanging out for warmth. And we finally got it. Yeah, we finally got it. It's beautiful. But where I live in the southern part of Australia, in Victoria, it's we do get snow. So I don't get snow here in Warburton, but I can see snow from my kitchen window up on the mountain behind me. So it's we have the full gamut of seasons. It just doesn't get as cold as it does over there.
Yeah. Got it. Okay. Well, as I've talked to you about this, my podcast has changed over. We're talking about bright, shiny objects and really looking at that they're not all bad. You know, I think that bright, shiny objects get a bad rap along the way because they can pull us off in directions as entrepreneurs that perhaps they shouldn't. But I would love to know from a positive perspective, what is the bright, shiny objects that get you out of bed every morning when it comes especially to your business?
Oh, I don't have any trouble getting out of bed in the morning for my business. I think because my business is very much a part of me and a part of my self-expression. It's my hobby, it's my work, but it's also my passion. So, and this year, there's been a lot of changes in my business. So I've been very motivated to get out of bed in the morning.
And so let's talk about that. What has been the transformational part of your business? Like from last year through this year, how has your business changed?
Dramatically. And it began, at the beginning of COVID, when I usually run workshops from my home based studio here, and I have accommodation as well. So I run small retreats, and that's what I was doing for 7 years. And then COVID hit, and my workshops were booked out that year for the first year of COVID for the whole year. And I got to the beginning of the year and I was feeling incredibly overwhelmed at the amount of work that I had to do and the amount that I'd taken on, because I have a large property as well, which I maintain myself, and I'm a gardener, plus the accommodation, and I Airbnb that, and the workshops. And I remember back in February 2020, I was thinking, I just have to take this one day at a time, because I just don't know how I'm going to get through the year. I feel exhausted now just thinking about it. And then suddenly in March, everything closed down because of COVID. And to be honest with you, I was relieved. I felt like I had a reprieve. And for the very first time, I actually had the opportunity to, rather than work in my garden and work constantly, I was sitting a lot of the time, having cups of tea and pondering what I was going to do in the future. And it was at that point that I realized that I needed to change the landscape of my future, because I turned 60 in that year, and I just couldn't see myself sustaining the kind of workload that I was that I'd taken on. So then during COVID, at some point during COVID, I'd met this lovely woman from Colorado, Tessa Sullivan, who is a videographer and photographer and a web designer. And we'd connected through my small business. She'd been asked to do a film on small businesses in the Yarra Valley, and we met, and just before she left my studio, I said to her, would you be interested in filming online workshops? And she said, look, it's not something that I've done before, but it's definitely something I'd be interested in. And so, excuse me, 2 years later, beginning of this year, I reached out to her and said, look, are you still interested in online workshops? Because I decided during COVID that could possibly be my future direction. I'd heard from a lot of people that, it was the way to move into your future if you wanted to create more passive income, to connect with a bigger audience. And during COVID, that's what happened for me, fortunately. Because I was home and couldn't go anywhere, I was working in the studio a lot and creating short videos for Instagram. And during that second year of COVID, my Instagram audience grew. And it was at that point, really, that I decided that I had this audience. So now there was a possibility of actually having a ready-made audience that I could sell online workshops to and connect with. And I was enjoying the connection that we had. Yeah. Anyway, so then I contacted Tessa, and then I cancelled the whole thing. Fear,
Yeah. Okay.
Fear came into it. It was, I was really out of my depth. Technology-wise, I'm great at the practical things. I'm good at making work and liaising with people.
I would say you're better than good. You're masterful. The art that you create is so amazing. It is so amazing.
That's so lovely of you to say, Cheri. But it's interesting because that's my comfort zone, and that's where I'm in control. But the whole venturing into this new world of technology and online workshops is just completely out of my comfort zone. So 2 weeks before we were to start, I rang her and said, I'm sorry, I don't think I can do this. Anyway, she was just so gorgeous. And she said to me, okay, she's very, very clear, very level-headed and calm. She said to me, what's your biggest fear? And it was, I said, I feel like I'm venturing down the path of something I have no idea about. And she said, but that's why you've asked me to come and help you do it. And I had no idea really at that time how amazing she was and what she could actually do. Because I said to her, I need a new website and I need this and that. And she said, it's all okay. That's what we're going to do together.
Do you feel like, was there kind of an imposter syndrome that swelled up in you with this fear?
Absolutely.
Who do I think I am to be doing this?
Absolutely. I thought, no, just stay small and contained. That's your comfortable space. And so to actually to venture out into something like this was really daunting for me. And the other thing was that I'd always been in control of my business. I'd never employed anybody, I'd always done my thing and kept it so that I could control it. And, it was to hand it over to somebody. And that's basically what I've been able to do, which is really wonderful. So Tessa came in, we did this gorgeous mind mapping of where we wanted to go, how it was going, my vision.
Mm-hmm.
And she actually brought it to fruition. She was the one who held my hand the whole way. So the first workshop that we did was back in April this year, and we built a new website and got my online shop up and running, and there was a lot going on. And she took it and ran with it. And we actually, she's 28. She's technology is her thing. And
it's like breathing, right?
It is like breathing. So it was a really big lesson for me in being able to hand over and know that I could trust her to present the workshops the way I wanted them presented. And I did want a very professional look. I went through an American platform called Teachable, and it was to upload all the videos, and that was great. And neither Tess nor I had done any work with Teachable before. And so she kind of took the reins and explained what we were doing as she was going along. And yeah, it was really amazing. So after the nerves and anxiety of the first one, which was launched back in June and has been incredibly well received, which is really wonderful, we did another one in when did we film it? In October. And we've just launched the second workshop, the Wing Totem.
And do these piggyback on each other, or how do you see this happening?
I like to, it's the work that I do, the work that people see that they love. And I get a lot of messages and emails from people that are starting out in the ceramics world that are either doing it as a hobby or they want to do it in a more professional capacity. And they see my work, and they ask me questions about it. And so what I've actually done is created the workshops around what I do, because that's what I know really, really well. And I'm not afraid of giving anything away. I think that I share everything I know, and I share what I do. So the workshops, they do link in. The first one was the layered clay vessel workshop, which was all about creating texture and allowing people to open up to spontaneity. So when you're working in a studio, you're often really set, people get quite set in their ways, and they produce work that they are familiar with, that they understand, and it can be repetitious. In order for you to make a living, you sometimes have to repeat.
Mm-hmm.
This workshop allows the participant to really free themselves up. So it's very spontaneous. The work, I call it freedom within a framework. So the work that they're creating is, there is a framework, there is a foundation, and it is structured, but at the same time, it allows for the student to create work that's uniquely their own. Mm. And that's how I've always run my workshops. I've always liked to challenge the student. So when I run workshops from home, I don't just do easy things. Even for students who have never touched clay before, the reason I love to run a program with a structure is because I think that you can actually learn lots of techniques that you can then use in other and direct to other work that you're creating. So I think it's wonderful for students to actually see themselves creating something like a large vessel and know that they can actually take that work to the very next level by adding things on. As you're actually creating, you're generating creative ideas. It's and that's the feedback that I'm getting from people. Like, they'll do something and then they'll do the workshop, and then they'll message me and say, I want to do this now. I want to make really big work, or I want to make miniatures, or I want to add driftwood, or I want to add, other textures, and I can see how I can create this form and create a lid, or it's a springboard, really. It's a springboard in learning techniques. Also using, I use a lot of support molds in my work so that people can see how they can actually create something large, but they can also have simple things that help them support those large pieces. So it kind of brings everything together. And in the new totem workshop, I create in my own garden large totems and small totems. The workshop is a small totem workshop, but it has a lot of elements in it that you can duplicate or you can make larger to create larger pieces, So it's all hand building. I don't do any wheel throwing. I used to work on the wheel and make domestic wear, but that's not where I'm at now. I want people to, going back to the wheel, to work on a wheel and to create.
Jena, I think I have lost you. There you are. Okay, we froze up a little bit. Okay, so you were saying about the the wheel.
Yes, to make work on a wheel, you need to have a wheel so that you can practice on, and it takes time. Whereas with hand building, I can give somebody a lump of clay and they can work through one of my workshops, and they might not have ever touched clay before or had very little contact with it, and they can create something quite special. And I've seen it time and time again. I've seen it in my studio where people come and they say, I haven't done anything before. I'm so nervous. I'm so anxious. And with the instructions that I give and the project that we're actually working on, once they see a project complete, it gives them a visual picture of the direction that they're going to head in. And then we work through it one stage at a time. So it seems to work quite well. It's
interesting. Well. Do you, because I come across in my work all the time where people say, oh no, I'm not creative. Like I couldn't even do that. So it sounds like there is the mindset piece that you work on as well as the actual artwork piece of it.
I think it's interesting. Look, Instagram has been amazing for that. I think COVID as well, because it was during COVID that a lot of people veered towards creative activities. Yes. People took up pottery like you wouldn't believe. I've been a potter for 40 years, and I've been watching this journey, and it's been phenomenal, the amount of people that have taken up craft. And so the timing for my workshops was perfect. And I have a large American audience, and they're very open. They're very au fait with online workshops, and yes. They seem to be. They're very, it's very much a part of their life. So they're familiar with it. They embrace it, and it's been delightful for me because I feel like I've got this ready-made audience, but that have actually encouraged me and pushed me in this direction, really, which has been great. So it's definitely a two-way.
Isn't that lovely? Isn't that lovely? And do you do live group sessions with the workshops?
I haven't yet. So the workshops, the last workshop that we did is a 3-hour workshop online. So it's broken down into lots of modules. There are PDFs, downloadable PDFs and that sort of thing. But I make myself available for one-on-one sessions with people. So I have I get emails and I reply within 24 hours to everybody who's asking anything or uncertain or, and I can direct them back. So the content in the workshop is, I think there's an incredible amount of content. Actually, look, I listened to myself after the workshop, after we'd filmed and edited the workshop. Tessa sent me the workshops and she said, "Oh, check these out," I was a bit exhausted with myself after the first 20 minutes. So it took me a few days to watch them all, but it was very important for me that I cover absolutely everything. And prior to filming the workshop, I did a mock-up here. So I got a group of women together in my studio and we did the workshop from start to finish. And that way I was able to iron out any little hiccups or anything like that came up, that were things that were too difficult or, and that was a really great way of doing it. So that when it came to filming, we nutted all that out. So it's good.
And was there anything along the way? I mean, one of the things with bright, shiny objects too is that they can, again, when there's that fear, even after Tessa had said, you guys decided you were moving forward, was there anything that kind of pulled you away from it for a short period to go, ooh,
Yeah, absolutely.
Disguised as something else?
Yeah, I had a lot of anxiety. Around putting myself out there, and I'm an introvert.
I know it well.
Recognize, but when I say that, I'm not a full-blown introvert, and I don't really like labeling myself like that. But I'm quite a private person in terms of my work and all that sort of thing. I'm okay, but to put yourself out there, you would know it's confronting and it's challenging, and there's a lot there. For me, there was a lot of fear, and I think you were hit it on the head. That imposter syndrome definitely reared its head during that time, and also the whole technical side of things. When something went wrong or something didn't quite work out, and we had a few glitches with the first workshop and the second one as well, which was just to be expected. But because it was so out of my comfort zone, I didn't cope well with the glitches. When people would message me and say, "What's going on here?" I have no idea.
But I think it's so important to really look at the fact that you brought support in to support you. And I think, and especially as women, I think so often we're like, oh, I've got to do it myself, or I don't want to spend the money, or, whatever the reason for it is. And just by allowing Tessa to take your hand and guide you, it transformed your business.
And that's key, really, Cheri, because I've had a lot of messages and emails from women from all around the world saying, "We really want to do online workshops. How do we start? What do we do?"
Well, maybe that'll be your next program.
Yeah, that's it. But I'm really, because it's so fresh for me, I'm absolutely, because when I first started, I was looking for people to help, but, I wasn't really sure what I was looking for, and I certainly wasn't getting what I was wanting until I met Tess. And then I just felt like, I've actually come to feel as though this destiny is really
Little kismet happening.
part of my life, because it was meeting Tess, and that was so fortuitous.
And it sounds like she has a bit of a coaching personality to
absolutely.
her, right? That she was able to see your fear and push back against it instead of just going, okay, all right, never mind.
Yeah, that's right. No, she was amazing. She is amazing. But I couldn't have done it without her, and I couldn't. I don't believe that I could have done it without her, because I just didn't have that confidence to venture down this path. And to, I know a lot of younger women do. I don't think I would have if I hadn't have met Tessa or somebody similar. And we were just on the same page right from the very beginning. She really embraced my vision of how I wanted everything to look, and the professionalism, and we're still on the same page. And yes, people do say, oh, well, I haven't got the money to spend. But to be honest, it's absolutely, an elderly friend of mine once said to me, you can't make omelettes, Jena, without eggs. And that's true. The rewards have been phenomenal. And if you can find somebody to work with, I'd highly recommend it, particularly if the creative, the making side is your forte, which it is mine.
Right.
Then it's great to hand over. So recently, when we launched the second workshop, I was sick with COVID, and I remember lying there feeling really terrible, and I couldn't even go online to do anything. And I thought, oh, isn't this wonderful? This is what this is what we're working together for. She's doing all this. I don't have to worry. And I've actually stopped messaging her all the time. Like, how are things going, and what's happening with this? Now I can just comfortably hand it over and know that she's going to do a great job. But it's finding somebody you can trust to do that. And I definitely found it with her. So
that's fantastic. And I think too, for anybody listening to this podcast who is a technology person working with, someone of our age group, to really listen carefully to this, because it's wanted, it's needed, but we do need a little push. And I know that people sometimes will step back and go, oh, she's not ready or whatever. And it's really just coming forward and working together as a team. I have someone that I work with as well that I feel the same way, that it's that ease when you just go, oh, she's got it. She's got it. I don't have to worry about it anymore. One less thing to worry about. Yeah.
But if online workshops, the one big thing that was the big game changer for me, it was having an audience. And, I'd thought about doing online workshops in the past, but my audience wasn't large enough. So I had to actually, that audience needed to grow for me to do that, because otherwise, who are you going to market it to, and how are you going to market it?
Well, and it's amazing, because I know I reached out to you through Instagram, and I'm like, Jena, what's going on? Your numbers are exploding.
It's been like, look, I get a lot of flack from my family about it. It's so funny, they call me the influencer. And it is fantastic. We can't take it too seriously, but it is important to have that. And I think for me, part of growing the audience was being consistent and constantly wanting to improve the quality of what I was uploading onto Instagram, and also reaching out to other artists. So And that was a really important one for me when I was looking at the website and the future, you know, the online work. I reached out to some of my favorite ceramic artists on Instagram and emailed them and asked them for some guidance. And, you know, they replied, and amazing, absolutely amazing. People were so generous. And I thought, that's the key. Your generosity, you need to be generous. It's not just a one-way thing.
And it's building the relationships, right? I mean, it's just not about like how many followers do I have, but how many followers am I building a relationship with? And like, you know, when you start to get into the big numbers like you have now, it's hard to build a relationship with everyone. But I know that you've always been really good about, you know, and other people that I know that have built really strong platforms always respond, you know, that within, like you said, 24 hours, they're back, you know, responding.
Absolutely. That's the way I work, and and I couldn't do what I do without the audience. And it's beautiful to form, you know, you might never meet them, but gosh, I've met some gorgeous people online. Absolutely wonderful. And the beautiful thing about it is a lot of the people that purchased the first workshop loved it so much they purchased the second one. So, you know, and so now I'm very familiar with their names. They pop up, you know, and we have a conversation. They message me about small things or big things or whatever. And I feel like we have a relationship, you know.
You've built a community. Yeah.
It's really wonderful. And yeah, it's been an amazing journey for somebody who's quite
So just to be told that an introvert can get out there and do great things.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? Well, you know, I don't know. I still think, you know, it's bright. It's a bright, shiny object. Definitely a bright, shiny, and it's a lovely bright, shiny. But you can also, but like everything, you know, bright and shiny can sometimes fade.
Yes. And, you know, and with that said, what kind of boundaries have you found at this point that you've put around yourself, if any, to protect yourself and to, I mean, because it can be exhausting, you know, even like not to get back to where you were before you started the online programs. How do you protect yourself?
Well, my family don't let me get too you know,
families are good at that.
But I also find that there comes a time where I have to turn things off. I have to turn everything off and go away. And, you know, as I said to you, the beach is somewhere where I love to go and to spend time there. And I tend to, and I'll put my phone on silent, or I do have to tell myself, I don't need to answer this immediately. Because my tendency is to answer immediately. If someone's having an issue, I've got to get back to them, which is great. But sometimes that really pushes me to a point where I just think, oh my gosh, you know, there's just so many things to do, and I'll get cross. And sometimes I just have to breathe and say, okay, I can answer this tomorrow. It doesn't have to be done right now. Or I can do this tomorrow. Instead of, I'm a bit like a dog with a bone. I come from a family like that. You know, if there's something to be done, I've got to do it immediately. And I burn myself out. It's simple as that. So it's actually stepping back and being aware of it. You know, sometimes I'll be lying in bed in the morning and I'll be thinking, this is what I've got to do. Da, 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 da. And then I'll say, stop and just breathe and just,
I'm curious, do you have a morning practice that you do?
I do. I have a morning ritual that I do. I wake up, I lie in bed and look out my window, which is beautiful and faces the mountains. And I get up and make myself a cup of tea. And my animals, I have a cat and a dog, they come and join me, and we lie on the bed, we have a cup of tea, and we just contemplate the day. And I'll sit and do a meditation. I'll sit and do a meditation through Insight Timer, which I love. It's an app on my phone. So I'll pick one for the day, and I'll do maybe a 10-minute visualization or something. And I don't do that every day, because some days I'll get up and I'll go for a walk. So I do about a 3-kilometre walk around my village and come back, pick up my dog, who is elderly, and we do a little walk, and then we go and have a coffee. So that's sort of vaguely my routine, nice. my practice in the morning. It's pretty easy. It's easy. Many years, Cheri, I got up and went to work, and when I was working out in the world, or I would be in the studio. If I was making work constantly, I'd be in the studio by 8:30 in the morning, and I'd have this grueling day of work, stop for lunch. But it's lovely to be a bit leisurely now. So sometimes I don't get into the studio till 10, and that's all right.
Well, and it's something that I think is so important, especially as women and our nervous systems, and that we just start that day. I call it morning momentum, because it's that part of the day that just gets your engines going without just like slamming you into the world,
Yes.
and just, so many a client will say, oh, I don't have time for that. I'm like, oh, yes, you do. Yes, you do. You need to. And even if it means getting up a little bit earlier, just to be able to have time for you, especially moms with little ones. I mean, it's important.
It is important. And it's a very different. I love this time of our lives. I love this time. And I love the fact that the change for me with the online work has definitely changed the landscape of my life, looking into the future. And I don't know how long all that's going to last, but, you can't be worried about that. I tend to just be in the moment more with it.
Well, that brings me to the next question I was going to ask. What excites you most when you look into that crystal ball of the future? What are you excited about?
I'm excited about the possibilities of new work, particularly for the new year. I get very excited when I see things. Like at the moment, I'm really into driftwood. And you'll be watch this space, because you'll be seeing lots of driftwood everywhere. Driftwood and rope and all this sort of thing. I'd really like to incorporate a lot more of that in my work. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about working more with steel and incorporating ceramic, steel, rope and driftwood and other materials into my work. And I'm really looking forward to that. So look, it's funny because things spark me off. I'll see something and think, oh my God, I can do
bright
something.
Shiny object. Bright shiny object alert.
So those sorts of things really excite me. I don't have any big plans, or I'm hoping to do another series of workshops with Tessa in April. We're kind of looking at what I really want to do, and this is a secret.
I won't tell anybody.
But what I'm going to do is I'm going to reach out to my Instagram audience and ask them what they want, and say, what do you want? Because I want to put together a series of 2 or 3 small workshops and bundle them together with the most frequently asked questions that I get. How do you make the mold? How do you do this? How do you do that? And that's really what I want to do. So over the coming weeks, I will be posting some posting that on Instagram and asking people what they would like me to do, because I've always got an idea, but I think I get a lot of frequently asked questions that I try and cover on Instagram, but people don't necessarily just want a 90-minute reel. They might want a half an hour workshop or an hour workshop.
Right.
And I'd really like to do that for them in April.
I love that idea of, again, because we have so many ideas, as you just rattled off a bunch there, is to ask, your audience what it is that they're wanting from you. I think that's a great way to go forward.
So that's, I just want to, I think I was thinking about your questions, and what gives me the most satisfaction is actually helping other people to achieve their dreams, because when we were young, I don't know about you, but I was always creative, and I have worked in some pretty tiny little postcard size studios, and loved every minute of it. But I just like to remind people, or let people know, particularly younger people, that their circumstances that they're in now won't always be the same, that everything's constantly moving and shifting and changing, and I could never have dreamed of where I'm at now back then, because I was in the moment back then too. I was enjoying the journey, and I just being consistent and following your dream and following your passion.
Yeah. And will you continue to make your pieces? Will you continue to produce your art?
Yes, that's what I'm excited about, because I've actually got some commissions that I'm doing at the moment, and I'm a bit disappointed that I didn't get to put out a Christmas, fill the store for Christmas. It just,
when I didn't get into the store for the last time, which I was totally disappointed about. So tell me when I can get back into the store again.
Unfortunately, because of the COVID, I just couldn't get into. I had kind of 3 weeks where I was just out of it, and I missed
right.
all that sort of thing. But they'll watch this space. It'll happen.
All right, I will. Anything else you want to share before we say goodbye?
I think that's pretty much. I think I probably talked too much, but
no.
It's a joy. Thank you so much for asking me to come and talk to you. And
my pleasure, my absolute pleasure.
Lovely to see your face again.
Yes, as it is to see yours. And I love your voice, and I love listening to you. So it has been fantastic, and I will have to not wait so long to do it again.
Merry Christmas, Cheri.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to you too.
Yeah.
All right.